Since we aired our last show last week on Friday, there's been another horrific mass shooting. This time in Buffalo, New York. This is where I grew up, and so it hit very close to home. It's extremely heartbreaking to hear the stories of how this happened, what instigated this, what inspired this extremely racist, white supremacist act. We've probably all heard what happened, what led to the situation at this point, but I do want to take the time to discuss it a little bit more. This murderer, this white supremacist, was from a region about 2 hours 2 hours away from Buffalo in central New York. He had been radicalized not just through mainstream right-wing media like Tucker Carlson, who has mainstreamed extremely far-right Nazi theories like white replacement, but he was radicalized online. And I know you guys will watch the show and listen to the show, know how often I beat the drum on how these algorithms are radicalizing people and how they're racist and how they're sexist. Not only are they racist and sexist in that they are not pushing forward more diversity in who watches these shows, which tweets get pushed out more, but they're actually racist and sexist. The kinds of conversations that get more attention, that are being built up and incentivized through this algorithm, are ones that yell at women of color who are in Congress, that push in even further right circles this white replacement theory. So you might start watching a show because they're anti-Democrat establishment, and then the next thing you know, they're anti-vax, and the next thing you know, they're yelling at the squad and women of color for putting identity over economics when those things can be intersectional. That's an important point, right? And then the next thing you know, you're watching Jordan Peterson, and the next thing you know, you're watching Tim Pool, and then you're watching Tucker Carlson, and then he cites white replacement theory, and then you Google that, and then you're suddenly radicalized. This is how this pipeline works. And the tech companies need to be held responsible. I've been talking about this since we launched our show a little over 2 years ago. It became very clear when one day we went from gaining 10,000 subscribers a week to pause. And I started to do my research behind what happens. The tech companies know what is going on. This is not play dumb. This is called they don't want to lose money by changing their entire operating system. Now, was it intentional? I don't know. Maybe in some of these spaces, it is intentional. Maybe it's a blind spot. But when you have blind spots, you fix them. Like when a series of video games was charging for people to identify as a woman in the video games versus men who could play, the icons were male, those were free, but the female icons were charged. When that was called out by a 12-year-old girl in the Washington Post, guess what? Major video games decided, oh my God, that's a blind spot, we have to fix it. Including one video game that was designed and founded by a woman who was embarrassed. This isn't about embarrassment anymore. This is about violence. This is about violence against a community that already has enough struggles. That Tops Friendly Market, which I have probably been to, but for sure I have been to Tops Friendly Markets throughout my childhood. That was in a primarily Black community in Buffalo, New York. He targeted that community because he thought he could reach more people of color as targets. But that Tops Friendly Market was brought to that community by the community, not by Tops, not by city planning, not by tax incentives. They were living in a food desert. So they organized and lobbied Tops to have a grocery store, because otherwise people had to get on the bus and go 2.5 hours transferring through a bus to a grocery store 5 miles away or 8 miles away. This was literally about community. And some white boy being radicalized because he thought he was going to be replaced because he was insecure, decided to get in the car with mass weapons and kill a community, leaders, organizers. This is not what we are supposed to be. I know that we have been talking about this forever. This is not just about gun control, although it is about gun control. This is not just about mental health, although it is about mental health. This is not just about tech companies literally being like, oh, can't be held responsible. This is also about leadership. We are in a state, New York State, that is a Democratic state. We have the ability in this state, in the Assembly, in the Senate, and with the governor, even in an election year. First off, in the election year, we should be talking about this nonstop. But because the rest of the country is under attack through gerrymandering and Republican takeovers, and because Congress can't do anything right now because you've got some people holding things up, because our president just doesn't realize he has the power of a pen in a lot of situations, we in New York State can do something. We can do something about mental health. We can pass our own version of Medicare for all and make sure that more people have access to mental health facilities. We can do something about housing. When you're destabilized, it makes you feel insecure. When you don't have a high enough minimum wage to live in New York, it makes you feel insecure. When your schools aren't funded, children may be alienated. But most importantly in this situation, I believe, because of the radicalization that's happening so rapidly, we have to do something about big tech. I'm going to read off the names of the community members who were terrorized and murdered by this terrorist. Aaron Salter was a Buffalo. Aaron Salter was a part of the Buffalo police force. He was there for 30 years. He was a security guard. He was retired. He shot back, but did not hurt the terrorist because the terrorist was wearing protective gear, professionalized protective gear. Really horrifying. Ruth Winfield was 86. She was a retired Buffalo Fire Commissioner, part of the commission, excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm just going through all the there's stories about each of these women. She was a grandmother. Catherine Cat Macy. She went to pick up groceries for her family. Normal day. Was murdered. Hayward Tenney Patterson. He was very active in his state tabernacle church, and he would drive people to the supermarket who were not able to walk there. He would carry the groceries. Unbelievable. Pearlie Young. She was somebody who ran a weekly food pantry for 25 years. And she was going there to collect groceries that day. Unbelievable. 77 years old. Roberta Drury, 32. She was going to pick up groceries to make dinner for her family that she was staying with. And she was murdered. Celestine Cheney. She went with her sister to the supermarket because she wanted to make strawberries for strawberry shortcake because it's summertime. And that is, I can't tell you how many memories I have Buffalo strawberry shortcake in the summer. And she was murdered. And her sister saw her body minutes later. Marcus Morrison, 52. Andre McNeil, 53, from Auburn, New York. Geraldine Talley, 62, from Buffalo. These are just some of the stories of the people who were terrorized. And it is a memory, if we remember what happened in another community I was born in, which was Tucson, when Gabby Giffords was shot at a community event in a grocery store parking lot. I remember that day because my grandmother lived down the street and a quarter mile away. And at 90 years old or so, she used to go every Saturday morning for grocery shopping. And that day, she didn't go because my cousin had a baby shower. These things can hit every single community in this country. No one is protected anymore. We have to do something about it. If you are not already, make sure to like and subscribe us. Jump in that, wherever you're watching us, Twitch, YouTube, like, subscribe, share on social media. I know many of you do, and I really appreciate that. We have an Instagram account, we have a Twitter account. And if you're not already a patron, please join us on patreon.com/the Nomiki Show. There you can find swag and lots of other stuff. I'm going to be posting about other projects I'm working on. I think you guys are familiar with the work that I've been doing in Puerto Rico on a documentary. There, I am going to be reaching out to our patrons soon and just sharing some of the updates